Are you aware that this is one of the most resilient, most sustainable, most innovative cities in the world? London. And what do I mean by all of this? Well, not only is London the greenest city for real estate and #1 global innovation-led city, London remained the top destination for cross-border capital throughout the pandemic so far. Now, I'm a researcher, and I don't naturally lean towards superlatives, but these statements are all evidence-based. Resilient global demand has been broad-based from investors right across the risk spectrum. From those looking for well-understood safe havens to near-neighbour European investors taking advantage of different competition through the pandemic. And this demand for London continues, despite us all existing and operating in an ever more complex and uncertain environment. Markets and investors around the world are trying to figure out the path of inflation and what this means for property prices. Investors are trying to figure out the trajectory of COVID and what this means for future demand for real estate. Investors are also trying to capture structural changes, from demographics to operating in a lower long-term growth environment. Commercial real estate importantly offers favourable risk-adjusted returns amid an environment of equity market volatility, lower yielding bonds, and transitory inflation, where transitory could mean more than a year. In addition, London real estate has demonstrated relative stability, potential to deploy large amounts of capital, and the ability to deliver income even through the pandemic. Looking forward, we expect London to gain from record forecast capital flows this year, benefiting from the return of those investors previously challenged by travel restrictions and those who see real estate as an inflation hedge, to those investors taking advantage of London having one of the largest pools of sustainably rated buildings globally. Sustainability is forecast to move up the agenda this year, becoming an increasingly global requirement, driven by investor and occupier demand, the ability to secure finance, as well as regulatory considerations. This all means, as Ollie will set out, that we are likely to see a divergence in performance and pricing between buildings which are green or have green potential and those that don't. London's place as a global centre of green finance is also forecast to support demand for sustainable assets. But even for sustainability, the environment is ever more complex, with embodied life cycle carbon likely to become more important over the year ahead, and already a consideration in the London Energy Transformation Initiative. Now, a number of you have been asking questions to the capital markets teams over the last year. Nick and Ollie are going to answer 3 of these most pressing questions over the next few minutes. These are: how are capital flows changing since the onset of COVID? How is ESG moving to the forefront of investor decisions? And what is the outlook for pricing?